Shawn Maves. He's a former Mr. Ontario. Take us back to the 1980s.
I did a lot of my training during the mid-'80s, wrestling, which was a little more family-friendly. Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior. These are bodies built on steroids, and I wanted to look like one of these guys. When I moved to Ottawa to do my undergraduate at Carleton University, I probably spent more time reading muscle magazines than I did studying for my classes. I was so into bodybuilding. I was in the gym 6 to 7 days a week. I changed my diet, high protein diet, 6 to 7 meals a day. I sometimes would set my alarm clock in the middle of the night to get extra protein. My friend, Mark Lapierre, I trained with at CFB Petawawa, also did the same. We were totally dialed in. When we trained, it was like war. For me, there was going to be no football career. There's going to be no hockey. I tried those sports out, not good enough. You know what it's like in Canada. If you're not at the elite level in hockey by 13, 14 years old,
you're not going to make it.
You're not going to make it.
But listen, I'm on a comeback. You know, I've just finished having my surgery, and I think there's hope that the Leafs might draft me this summer. So you got to have hope.
You got to have hope, exactly.
So what was driving you?
Well, what was driving me, I guess, was success. I wanted to make a name for myself. I wanted to make a legacy, right? I wanted to get my name in bodybuilding magazines, move to California, live the dream. You know, you have to aim high. But you know, I gave my life to Christ 13 years old at a Bible camp 4 hours north of New York City, one of Jack Wurtson's camps, Word of Life camp.
Word of Life.
Yeah. But by senior year, I totally derailed. And it got worse when I went to college. And then the bodybuilding started. 5, 6, 7 years, 6 years straight of training. And then I did the contest. I won Mr. Ontario Heavyweight Champion. I moved on to the national level. But by 1 year after tasting some success, I hit rock bottom.
What? And so what caused that? Because you think you'd be on a roll at that point.
I just completely forgot about God, you know. I was still, God, you know, God was watching me from a distance, but he's letting me do my thing. You know, he's let me talk with my mouth and you know, and telling people I'm moving to California, I'm doing this is happening, right? And I hit rock bottom though, I started using drugs off and on, steroids. There was no way you were going to be on a muscle magazine cover without using some. I didn't use this.
So when you talked about using drugs, was that to enhance your performance and your look, or was it just drugs to
performance-enhancing drugs,
okay.
Steroids.
Yeah.
I never took growth hormone or insulin like some of the guys are today, but I did dabble with steroids. I went from high school, I was 160. I built up naturally for 3 years. I went up to 190. And then with steroids, I went from 190 to 220 in another year and a half. I could bench press close to 400 pounds, squat 500 pounds, 19-inch arms, 32-inch waists, and the whole thing. So
wow.
With 6 to 7% body fat at contest time. So that's what it takes to win, you know, at that level. But like I said, I completely forgot about God. But Jesus is a good shepherd. He comes chasing after lost sheep. A friend of mine calls me up. He says, "Shawn, why don't you come back to church?" This is after I threw my steroids in the garbage. One of the steroids I tried put me in the hospital. I was living such an empty life. You know, you can look okay on the outside, but inside, I was wasting away. I was empty. I was not, this was not God's plan for me. I thought, this is my plan. I was doing my thing.
So how long did it take you to come to that point where you say, you know, I'm going down the wrong road. I've made a big mistake.
Well,
did it happen like suddenly you hit a brick wall, or was it gradual? Was there like a voice inside of you? Was God speaking to you every day, or were you just kind of blocking it all out?
No, it was at that intersection point. You know, God met me at that crossroad. A year after winning Mr. Ontario, I come back to my house, trophies in the living room. They meant nothing to me. I was just living an empty life. You know, I was living a lie. There's 3 newspapers who were interested in my story. I lied to them. You know, they were asking me about steroids and drugs, because this was just after the Ben Johnson scandal. Yes. Everybody wanted to know about steroids. Everybody was getting asked all over the place. so they came after me. I lied to family, friends. You know, it was a mess. I had to turn. It was time to come home. And God meets you at that intersection point. The friend invites me back to Bayview Glen Church, Thornhill.
I know that church.
Beautiful group. Bible study group, 40 people my age. I didn't even know these existed. And iron sharpening iron, I started listening to Christian radio station, WDCX 99.5. And sermon after sermon, God starts breathing life back into me. I start to understand God's promises, who I am. I'm a new creation. I'm God's special possession, called to tell the praises of him who brought me out of the darkness. So I start this new journey.
So when you started this journey at Bayview Glen Church,
Yeah.
and it's a whole long story, we could digress right now. On one occasion, I almost went there as their pastor.
Wow.
And so I know the church well, and it's got a wonderful legacy. Some of the men that have been there, that have led it, initially was a man named A.W. Tozer, who had a church downtown Toronto, and they moved the church out to where Bayview Glen is now.
That's right.
But you talked about
Avenue
people,
Road, I think it was.
That's right, it was Avenue Road. But you talk about churches, and they had this group of 40 people where you're in a Bible study with. Were you still weightlifting and training at that point, or had you just stopped?
No, I still trained. I was still in the gym maybe 3 or 4 times. I wasn't doing 6 times anymore. There was no point. The competitions were over. It was done. But I still wanted to maintain my physique. But yeah, that's just where I was at back then. So, but the best day, I tell people now, is when I threw the steroids in the garbage. That was the turning point. I'm done. It's over. The dream's over. I'm not going to California. It was in my head, right? It was in my head. I was going to be the next Arnold or the next Hulk Hogan, and find a wrestling school down the States and live the dream. It wasn't going to happen. It wasn't meant to be.
So when the dream crashed, did you know what to do next? Or
did you
hit a bottom?
All I knew is I was compelled to know the Savior more. I was compelled to listen to sermon after sermon and discover Christian music. It was just like a whole new world opened up. There was too much to lose by going back. There's no turning back. You know, I tell people now, people know me, that I lived a lot of lukewarm years. But in 2017, I told my wife, you know what, I'm going to read this Bible cover to cover. That's it. I started reading it. And that's when God had unveiled chapter 2, which is getting involved in media, which started in 2017 on Canada's Yes TV. I had my first interview. And I started co-hosting a TV show shortly after, occasionally.
Very cool.
Yeah.
We're talking right now with Shawn Maves, former Mr. Ontario, talking about the journey that he went on that led to a brick wall, and how God has taken that and has turned it around. And if you've ever hit a brick wall in your life, then you need to listen to the next part of the conversation that we're going to have together. And if at any time you want to talk to someone or have someone pray for you, why don't you call 855-910-6297. 855-910-6297. There are people there to pray with you, to talk with you, and to encourage you in this journey called life. We're going to be back in a moment with former Mr. Ontario. Stay tuned. You're watching The Perspective. Well, I'm here today with Shawn Maves, and the whole theme for this week and next week is messy lives. It seems that sometimes we can make decisions, we go down a path, even with good intentions, and we can hit the brick wall. How do we recover? How do we find our way back? One of the things that is very challenging in today's world is body image, especially with so much social media. We see what people look like, what they don't look like. I mean, my standing joke is that someday I'm going to be on the cover of Muscle Fitness magazine, but maybe that's not going to happen. And probably most of you today should just breathe a sigh of relief with that. But Shawn, come back and talk to us about this whole thing of body image. Because I've seen the Muscle Fitness magazines, and I looked at the guys, and, you know, they did curls for the girls and the muscles were bulging. And I'm thinking, wow, you know, that's pretty impressive. Is it an elusive dream? Can you ever handle all of that and stay mentally well and strong?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, today we see the best of everything on television, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, social media. And, you know, you could be captivated to live out this very obsessive fitness lifestyle. I try to warn people, You know, the real you is not what you see. The real you is your soul, which is your intellect, your emotion, and your will, and the spirit that lives inside, which only comes alive when we know Christ. But yeah, so the problem with social media is it does fuel a lot of body image disorders, especially in the female demographic. We could talk about that later a little bit. But even in the male demographic, there was a BBC study in 2015 that said one in 10 gym members suffer from the feeling that they're never big enough, and this is what is actually fueling the increased use of steroids among young teenage men, young adults, and even some middle-aged men who are going to TRT clinics and getting prescriptions and getting testosterone to build up their bodies.
So we know it's bad for you, but why is it bad? What are some of the negative side effects that happen?
Well, like I said earlier, I was a user for 2.5 years. So I used relatively low dosages, but it was still bad enough. But long-term users face some serious side effects. You can face heart disease, kidney damage, liver cancer. Growth hormone is a very popular performance-enhancing drug that's being used by not only bodybuilders but also pro athletes. We can get into that later also. That can accelerate not only growth of healthy but cancerous tissues. If I'm talking to somebody who has a family history of prostate cancer, why would you want to take the chance to accelerate microscopic cancer cells or tumors? So there are some serious side effects. A lot of guys will avoid those. Pro bodybuilders will go until the wheels fall off, quite frankly.
When you were weightlifting, and I mean, you still stay in shape, and obviously I can see that, and you're at the gym. How many times do you go to the gym now?
Well, I'm sad to say, Mike, I'm down to twice a week now.
Twice a week?
I got a little bit lazy. A few years ago, I was writing for Faith and Fitness magazine. I'd actually advertised this routine of mine, 3-day routine for bodybuilding.com, which is the second biggest fitness publication in the world. I was doing 3, now I'm down to 2. So,
okay.
But if I wanted to get in a little better shape, I'd probably recommend 3 days a week. I think you can do it. You don't need to go 6 days a week, especially if you're training natural. You know?
What is it that drives you? If you're not going to compete, what is it? Is it lust? Is it pride? You want people to notice you? What goes through your mind?
Well, it depends on what stage of life you're at. Earlier, it was legacy. I wanted to win titles because that was going to be my ticket. To move to California, live the dream. I told you earlier. It was all in my head. It never happened. But now, I think for now, it's just, oh, you won. You were Ontario champion. You don't look like it. So I think for now, it's just kind of stay in shape and have some resemblance of the past.
You know, you mentioned about Hulk Hogan and the heyday.
Yeah.
I was intrigued with some social media posts just the last month. I was reading about Hulk Hogan, how he has surrendered his life to Jesus Christ. And he's saying, this is the most exciting thing that has happened to me in life. This is what actually makes things make sense. How did you discover the purpose for which God created you? Because you hit a brick wall. You were at Carleton University, you were training, and then eventually came to that point, you threw the steroids in the garbage. What road did you go down after that as you started to listen for God's voice?
Well, I mentioned earlier, I needed to hit a brick wall a year after becoming Ontario bodybuilding champion heavyweight class. I hit the brick wall, and the Good Shepherd came chasing after me. Leads me back into church, and I started to discover my true identity in Christ. I'm a new creation. The old has passed, new has come. And now,
can you explain that a bit more? I think that's important for people here. Your true identity.
Well, the true identity is not the physical me. This will die someday. The true identity is my soul, which is my intellect, emotion, and my will, and the Spirit, the Holy Spirit that lives in me because I'm a Christ follower, quickens me and enables me to do things and perform and walk out the work that God has called me to do. Because in Ephesians 2:10 says, "I'm God's workmanship," and that He's planned. I'm creating Christ Jesus. So if I buy into that and believe that, and I believe it to be true, that He has a special plan for my life, and He has ordained me or called me to walk and find these works that He's called me to do. So.
That's,
including being here with you. But
and you're also doing quite a bit of stuff with media right now as well. Explain that just a little bit more for us. What do you want? What's the message you're trying to get out?
Well, the main place people can find me now is on YouTube. I take all the television, radio shows that I've done, and I take highlight clips and I stick them all on there. And topics that range from bodybuilding topics to all sorts of Christian topics. So, like I mentioned earlier, I used to co-host occasionally on Canada's Yes TV on At the Cross Live. I was a live co-host with our founder and host Corville Peters, who sadly passed away a few months ago.
Right.
But this was a live call-in show when anything can happen. So I actually memorized 200 Bible verses and memorized 50 different major topics, theological topics. So on point, I could be ready.
Just to talk to people.
Camera 2, go. There's a caller calling from Alberta, and she's blind. Can you encourage her? What do you say?
And what would you say to encourage people today? Because I know you have a message you want to get out. And in the final minute of our program today, first of all, thank you for just being vulnerable and sharing your story. That's absolutely huge. But what is it that you want people to take away today?
I want people to know that God has set eternity in our hearts, and the things we chase after in this world will never satisfy. Alice Cooper once said he had all the cars, all the fame, money, houses, but he couldn't fill that God-shaped void. And I found that to be true when I forgot about God, chased my bodybuilding dreams. There was such an emptiness. When I came back, now I came back to Christ, that God-shaped void is filled.
That is so cool. Shawn, I just want to say thank you for being here. And the next time I go to the gym, I think I got to meet you halfway, and you're going to have to teach me how to do a few things, okay?
Absolutely.
I'd love that.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Good.
Thanks a lot.
Stay with us. We're going to be right back on The Perspective.